Cade Rowan had always felt like the station moved around him, even when he stood perfectly still. Station Helion 4 was alive, buzzing with lights, sounds, and the endless hum of engines and power cores. Humans and alien species worked side by side here, and the mixture of different shapes, colors, and voices could overwhelm anyone not used to it. Cade, however, thrived in it. He could spot patterns that others missed, notice small details that the crew considered unimportant. That was why he was an engineer, and why he often found himself in parts of the station where others did not dare to go. That morning, as the station rotated to bring the main docking bay into sunlight from the nearest star, Cade noticed something strange. A small, pale handprint on a panel near the research wing did not match any human pattern. It was Illyrian, the race Lyra belonged to, soft-skinned and delicate, with a light shimmer that almost seemed to glow. Cade frowned. Lyra had always been careful, almost meticulous about her surroundings. She would not leave something like that behind. He brushed off the thought at first. The station was busy. Items got misplaced. But when he reached the research wing, the strange feeling in his chest only grew. Lyra's desk, normally immaculate, looked untouched, frozen in the exact state he had seen it yesterday. Her data crystals were in place, her notes stacked neatly. Even her small plant, a tiny luminescent sprout that she nurtured like a pet, stood perfectly straight. But Lyra herself was nowhere to be found. "Lyra?" Cade called softly, stepping into the room. He hated raising his voice in the research wing, even though the place was technically empty at this hour. "You here?" No answer. Only the quiet hum of machinery and the soft whirring of the station's artificial gravity. Cade moved closer to her desk. He noticed a small crystal, different from the others, placed gently on top of her notebook. It was glowing faintly, pulsing with light like it had a heartbeat. Cade picked it up carefully. He knew her well enough to recognize the crystal. Illyrians used them for messages, personal, private messages, and only someone they trusted could read them. He activated the crystal. A soft holographic image flickered to life. Lyra's face appeared, pale and worried. "If you're seeing this, something is hunting me," her voice said. Her words were calm, almost whispering, but her eyes betrayed fear. "Follow the markers I left. Don't trust anyone on the station. Only you can find me." Cade swallowed hard. He had heard rumors about things that hid in the shadows of stations, things that humans were never meant to see. But he had never believed them. Until now. And yet, despite the danger, something inside him pushed forward. He would find her. He had to. He quickly packed a small kit, a portable tool set, a few rations, and a compact energy blaster. The station was busy, but the research wing rarely had more than a handful of crew passing through at this hour. Cade moved quietly, checking security feeds for any sign of unusual activity. Nothing. The cameras had all been disabled in the nearby maintenance tunnels. Whoever, or whatever, was after Lyra knew the station better than anyone else, or they were clever enough to disable the cameras in advance. The first clue led him to the maintenance tunnels beneath the station, a labyrinth of corridors lined with pipes and conduits. Cade's footsteps echoed softly. He ran a hand along the wall, feeling the vibrations of the station hum beneath his fingers. He had spent months navigating these tunnels, fixing power surges, rerouting conduits, repairing leaking coolant lines. He knew every twist and turn. But today, the tunnels seemed unfamiliar, almost alive, twisting around him in ways that made his stomach tense. He could feel eyes on him, though he saw no one. He ignored the feeling, focusing on the small markers Lyra had left, tiny scratches on panels, subtle glows in corners, barely noticeable signs that only someone paying attention could notice. After several twists and turns, Cade came to a small maintenance alcove. Here, He encountered an elderly technician, an alien whose body had the irregular curves of someone who had worked too long under heavy machinery. "I saw her," the technician said before Cade could even ask. His voice was cracked, like old metal bending. "Fled with a figure. I don't know its kind. Not human, not Illyrian, something else." Cade's heart raced. "Where did they go?" The old technician shook his head. "I only saw shadows. Tunnels are tricky. But you'll find traces if you know what to look for. That's your gift, human. You notice things others ignore." Cade nodded and pressed forward. Each step brought new signs. A flicker of light here, a mark on a panel there. He realized that Lyra had led him this way intentionally. Whoever was after her underestimated the ability of humans to see beyond simple patterns. That thought made him both cautious and confident. He was close. He could feel it. The tunnels eventually opened into a part of the station that had been abandoned for decades. Broken machinery lay scattered across the floor. Panels were torn open, wires sticking out like twisted veins. The air smelled faintly of burnt circuits and ozone. Cade's eyes adjusted to the dim light, scanning for any clue. That's when he saw it. A faint energy signature glowing along the far wall. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat, and Cade recognized it immediately. Lyra's work. She had been studying something forbidden here, something that the station authorities would never approve. And that was why she was in danger. He followed the energy pulses carefully, ducking under low-hanging conduits and stepping over broken machinery. The farther he went, the more he realized the enormity of the situation. Lyra wasn't just hiding. She was being hunted, and the creature, or being after her, was clever, able to move unseen and strike without warning. He remembered the technician's warning and stayed alert, listening to every sound, watching every shadow. Then suddenly a sound came from the shadows, a soft, almost imperceptible click. Cade froze. His eyes scanned the dim corridor. There was nothing. But the pulse of energy from Lyra's research patterns was stronger now. She was near. He quickened his pace, careful not to make a sound. His hand brushed against a panel, and a small compartment opened, revealing another crystal. He picked it up. Lyra's face appeared again, her eyes even wider with fear. "Do not stop! Do not look back! Only you can reach me!" Cade's jaw tightened. There was no room for hesitation. He pressed on, moving deeper into the abandoned sector. The corridors narrowed, forcing him to crouch and move slowly. Occasionally, he would glance at the security feeds on his wrist monitor, but the feeds were dead here. No cameras, no sensors, only the faint hum of the station's life support. He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. The air seemed thicker, heavier, as if something invisible watched him. He reached a junction where the tunnels split in 3 directions. Cade stopped, consulting the crystal. It glowed faintly, pointing to the right path. He took a deep breath and followed it. The tunnel ended in a small alcove. Here, the energy pulses were strongest. He noticed scratches on the walls, faint, irregular, and unlike any tools he had seen. Someone, or something, had passed through here recently. He crouched and inspected the markings. They were deliberate, almost like warnings, but he understood enough to know they led him forward. As he moved, he realized that the creature hunting Lyra could mimic forms, change shape, and possibly even copy voices. That made it dangerous in ways he had never faced before. Humans relied on more than patterns. They relied on intuition, emotion, and memory. And that, he realized, was his advantage. He would have to rely on every bit of human instinct he had, every memory of Lyra, to see through any disguise the creature might use. He continued until the tunnel opened into a large chamber, half collapsed and filled with machinery that hummed with Illyrian energy patterns. This was it. Lyra's research center, abandoned, but not empty. The energy here was unlike anything Cade had ever seen. Shimmering, almost alive, moving across panels and conduits like it had a mind of its own. He could feel it, a pulse in the air, a thrum in his chest. She was close. He could feel her presence through the faint traces left in the energy patterns. Then he heard it, a soft, echoing whisper. Cade. The voice was faint, almost lost in the hum of machinery, but unmistakable. His heart leapt. Lyra, he whispered back. No reply, just a faint pulse from the crystal he carried. The trail was alive, guiding him forward, but the danger was real. He felt it in the pit of his stomach, in the way the shadows seemed to move around him. He pressed forward, ignoring the fear that tried to slow him down. Every step brought a new challenge, a fallen beam, a leaking pipe, a patch of unstable floor. But Cade's mind was sharp, his hands steady. He had trained for situations like this, and though this was beyond anything normal, he trusted himself. And he trusted Lyra, who had left these clues knowing only he could follow them. Finally, after what felt like hours, Cade reached a small alcove at the far end of the chamber. Here, the energy pulses were strongest. His eyes scanned the area, searching for Lyra. There was no one. But he noticed something. Another crystal, glowing faintly, placed in the center of the room. He picked it up and activated it. Lyra's face appeared, pale and frightened, her voice barely a whisper. Almost there. Don't stop. You are the only one. Cade swallowed hard, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This was no longer just a mission. This was life or death, and he would not fail. Whatever awaited him deeper in the station, whatever shadow or creature tried to stop him, he would face it. For Lyra, for the trust she had placed in him. And because deep down he knew humans could see what others missed, feel what others ignored, and act where others froze. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, into the unknown, following the faint, pulsing light of the crystal. He did not know what awaited him, but he knew one thing. He would find her, no matter the danger, no matter the cost. And that was the moment everything changed on Station Helion 4. Cade's mind raced as he moved deeper into the abandoned chamber. The faint pulse from Lyra's crystal seemed to pull him forward, guiding him like a beacon through the wreckage of broken machinery and flickering lights. Each step he took made the floor creak beneath him, the sound echoing through the empty space like a warning. He kept his hand on the walls for balance, feeling the vibrations of the station through his fingers. Something was near. He could feel it in the way the shadows shifted, in the way the air seemed thicker, as if the chamber itself were alive. He paused and scanned the room. Broken pipes dangled from the ceiling, dripping a faint, greenish liquid that hissed as it hit the metal floor. Sparks flew from a damaged conduit, casting fleeting shadows that looked almost like hands reaching for him. Cade's pulse quickened, but he kept his mind steady. Fear could slow a human or make them panic, but he had learned long ago to use it, to focus it, and to turn it into determination. Lyra was out there somewhere, depending on him. That thought kept his steps steady, even when every instinct screamed to stop. The crystal in his hand flickered, sending a soft blue light across the walls. Cade crouched and moved toward it, noticing scratches on the metal floor, tiny, irregular marks that indicated someone had passed this way. They were fresh, and they led toward a narrow passage that branched off the main chamber. He followed them carefully, aware that this could be a trap. The station had many abandoned sectors like this, places where anything could hide. Yet the trail was unmistakable. Only someone clever enough to notice the small details would have left them in this way, and Cade knew that was Lyra. She had planned for someone to follow, but she had trusted only him. As he advanced, he began to hear a faint sound, like whispering. At first, he thought it was the hum of the machinery, or perhaps the echo of the station itself. But then he realized it was a voice, soft and fragmented. He paused and listened. "Cade, you must hurry," it said, distant and strained. He recognized it immediately. Lyra. Relief and concern battled inside him. She was alive, but she was in danger. He quickened his pace, ducking under a collapsed beam and stepping over a pool of the strange green liquid. The narrow passage led him into a larger corridor that had clearly been sealed off for years. Dust floated in the air, catching the light from his crystal. Broken warning signs hung from the walls, faded symbols that no one in the station now remembered. The corridor was quiet, almost too quiet. Cade's instincts told him something was watching. He slowed, moving carefully, listening to the faint hum of the station's power and the occasional creak of metal under stress. As he rounded a corner, he saw a shadow move along the wall. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Cade froze. He could feel his heart pounding, but he forced himself to remain calm. Humans were unpredictable in ways no other species could match. That was his advantage. He didn't make a sound, didn't rush. Instead, he let the shadow pass and observed. The figure was not human, not Illyrian. It was taller than most humans, with limbs that bent in unnatural ways, and it seemed to glide rather than walk. Its head tilted toward him, but it didn't move closer. Cade realized it was watching him, testing him. He moved quietly along the opposite wall, keeping the shadow between himself and the light. The pulse from Lyra's crystal grew stronger, guiding him down the corridor. He could feel the creature's attention on him, the way it shifted with every step he took. Cade's mind raced, thinking of ways to avoid it, ways to use his environment. He remembered the old technician's words. You notice things others ignore. That was the key. Humans saw beyond patterns. Humans felt connections that no other species could. He noticed a small panel on the wall, slightly ajar, with faint light spilling from within. It was narrow, but he could squeeze through. He did, moving slowly and silently. The creature followed for a moment, but did not notice him enter the panel. Once inside, Cade pressed himself against the wall, listening. The shadow moved past, its limbs brushing against the metal walls with an eerie, wet sound. Cade held his breath until it passed, then emerged on the other side. The corridor opened into another chamber, this one larger and filled with broken Illyrian machinery. Panels flickered with half-formed holograms, and wires hung like vines from the ceiling. The energy pulse from Lyra's crystal was almost blinding now. Cade scanned the room, looking for more clues. He noticed scratches on the floor, faint and irregular, but unmistakable. They led to a corner where a small doorway had been partially blocked by debris. He pushed aside the rubble carefully, revealing a narrow passage that continued downward into darkness. He paused for a moment, thinking. The crystal had pulsed continuously, but it seemed almost alive now, as if it were reacting to his choices. Lyra was close, and she needed him to act quickly. He took a deep breath and moved into the passage. The walls here were damp, and the air smelled of ozone and metal. He could hear faint echoes, distant and strange, but he did not stop. Humans had a way of pushing forward when others would hesitate, and Cade knew that determination could make a difference where strength alone could not. The passage led him into a hidden laboratory, a place that had been sealed for decades. The machinery here was unfamiliar, glowing with faint Illyrian energy patterns. Some panels were damaged, others hummed with low, rhythmic pulses that seemed to communicate with one another. Cade moved carefully, his eyes scanning every detail. He found another crystal lying on a console, half buried under debris. He picked it up and activated it. Lyra's face appeared again, her eyes wide with fear but shining with hope. Almost there. The next room. Be careful. Only you. Cade's jaw tightened. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Lyra had trusted him with her life, and he could not fail. He moved deeper into the laboratory, noting the layout and the energy patterns. They seemed to form a map, subtle and intricate, guiding him forward. He followed the map, keeping his senses sharp for any signs of danger. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the laboratory. Cade ducked behind a console just as a figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall, humanoid, but wrong. Its limbs bent unnaturally, and its face shifted as if it were trying to imitate someone. Cade realized immediately this was the creature hunting Lyra. It could mimic forms, copy voices, and perhaps even trick the senses. But humans had something it could not anticipate: intuition and memory. Cade acted quickly. He grabbed a loose pipe and swung it toward the creature, not to strike, but to create a distraction. The creature flinched and hissed, and Cade used the moment to slip past, moving deeper into the laboratory. He could hear it pursuing him, but he stayed focused, using the shadows and debris to his advantage. Every instinct, every observation, every small detail he had noticed became a tool in his survival. The passage led to a sealed door marked with ancient Illyrian symbols. Cade studied the markings carefully. They were warnings, yes, but also instructions. He realized that the door could be opened only by aligning the energy panels in a specific pattern. He worked quickly, his fingers moving over the controls with precision. The creature was close now, its distorted voice echoing through the chamber. But Cade did not panic. He had humans' unique ability to remain calm under pressure, to notice what others missed, to think creatively when all else failed. With a final adjustment, the door slid open, revealing a smaller chamber beyond. The energy pulse from Lyra's crystal was strongest here. Cade stepped inside cautiously. The room was empty, but the walls shimmered with Illyrian energy patterns, almost like a heartbeat. He felt her presence, faint but unmistakable. She was here. He could sense it. The creature was also here, lurking in the shadows. But Cade was ready. He had prepared, and he had an advantage it could not predict: his understanding of Lyra, of the trust she had placed in him, of the way humans saw beyond simple patterns. He activated the crystal one last time. Lyra's face appeared, her voice urgent. "Cade, the stasis. It is not far. Be careful. Only you." Cade nodded to himself, steeling his nerves. He would not fail. He would face whatever awaited him because he had to. Because humans could see beyond fear, beyond deception, beyond even danger itself. And because he had promised Lyra he would find her. He moved forward, deeper into the unknown, guided by the crystal, by his instincts, and by the bond that tied him to the alien girl who had vanished from the station. Every step brought him closer, but also deeper into danger. Yet Cade knew one truth that no creature could ever understand. A human would not stop. A human would not hesitate. And a human, with determination and courage, could reach what others could not. Cade moved cautiously, his eyes scanning the dim chamber. The energy pulse from Lyra's crystal was almost unbearable now, as if it were alive and thrumming in his hands. Every step he took made the floor creak, echoing through the space, but he ignored the sounds. He had no time for fear. Lyra was close, and the creature hunting her was patient, clever, and dangerous. Cade had to rely on his instincts, every memory of her, and every human intuition that no other species could match. The corridor narrowed, forcing him to crouch and squeeze past hanging wires and broken pipes. Sparks flew intermittently from damaged conduits, lighting the path ahead in fleeting flashes. In one of those flashes, Cade thought he saw movement, a shadow that twisted unnaturally, limbs bending the wrong way. He froze, holding his breath. The shadow paused, then melted into the darkness. The creature was aware of him. It was testing him. He pressed on, following the crystal's pulse. It led him to a heavy reinforced door at the end of the corridor. Strange Illyrian symbols glowed faintly on its surface, marking it as a place of great importance or danger. Cade ran his fingers over the symbols, noting the subtle changes in the glow. They formed a pattern, almost like a lock, and he realized he needed to match it to open the door. His fingers danced across the controls, remembering the lessons Lyra had left behind in her crystals and notes. The symbols shifted, energy flowing along the lines as he aligned them correctly. With a low rumble, the door slid open, revealing a chamber that made Cade's pulse quicken. The room was massive, unlike anything he had seen in the station. Broken machinery, glowing conduits, and holographic panels floated in the air, flickering in strange patterns. But it wasn't the machinery that drew his attention. It was the stasis chamber at the center of the room. A pale, glowing form lay within, suspended in a cocoon of translucent energy. Lyra. Her eyes were closed, her body still. Cade felt a rush of relief, but it was quickly replaced by fear. The stasis was not natural, it was a trap, designed by the creature to keep her contained. Before he could approach, a sound echoed from the shadows. A low, distorted hiss, followed by the soft click of limbs moving unnaturally. Cade turned sharply, spotting the creature emerging from the darkness. It was taller than a human, its limbs twisted, its face shifting as it tried to mimic him. But Cade could tell it was not human. The eyes were wrong. The movements too precise, yet too alien. It was clever, but it could not anticipate the subtle human traits, the way he breathed, the tension in his muscles, the memories etched in his mind. Cade gripped a metal rod lying nearby, not as a weapon, but as a tool. The creature advanced, its shape shifting slightly, trying to confuse him. But Cade remained calm. He spoke aloud, testing it. "You're not human. You're not Illyrian. You can't imitate what I know. You can't fool me." The creature hesitated, tilting its head as if considering his words. Cade seized the moment. He swung the rod, hitting a loose panel to create a shower of sparks. The creature hissed and recoiled, giving him a chance to move closer to the stasis chamber. He could see the energy cocoon pulsing with Lyra's faint heartbeat, glowing brighter with every movement he made. He needed to break it, but the controls were complicated, a combination of Illyrian engineering and ancient alien technology. He crouched beside the control panel, his fingers flying over the holographic symbols. Each adjustment made the cocoon flicker, testing its stability. The creature circled him, hissing, trying to intimidate him. Cade ignored it, focusing on the patterns, feeling the rhythm of Lyra's energy through the cocoon. He remembered the crystal's message. "Only you can find me." Only a human could see the connections, feel the subtle pulses, act when others froze. Finally, with a careful sequence of movements, the stasis chamber responded. The energy began to unravel, flickering and sparking. Cade took a deep breath, knowing the creature would strike if he faltered. He shifted slightly, keeping his body low, ready to dodge, ready to act. The cocoon cracked, and a faint glow escaped, revealing Lyra's form inside. She stirred slightly, her eyes fluttering open. Cade's heart leapt. The creature hissed louder, advancing faster. Cade knew he had only moments. He remembered Lyra's favorite trick, one they had practiced together in the research lab, misdirection through sound and light. He grabbed a loose panel and threw it to the side, creating a burst of sparks. The creature flinched, and Cade used the distraction to touch the controls and release the final energy lock. The cocoon shattered with a blinding flash, and Lyra fell forward into his arms, weak but conscious. She gasped, looking at him with relief and fear mixed in her glowing eyes. "Cade, you found me," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but filled with the trust and hope that had guided him through the maze. The creature roared, a sound that shook the chamber, and lunged toward them. Cade held Lyra tightly, moving backward, using the energy panels and machinery to slow it down. He noticed a containment field generator, an old device designed for experiments, but still functional. With a quick glance, he saw a path. He would lure the creature into the field. It was risky, but humans were known for taking risks others avoided. He ran toward the generator, the creature pursuing, its limbs shifting unnaturally to match his speed. Cade activated the field just in time, and a burst of energy shot out, trapping the creature inside. It writhed, hissing and changing shapes, but the field held it steady. Cade breathed heavily, holding Lyra close. She was alive. He had kept his promise. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. I knew only you could find me, she said softly. I left the crystals, the clues, because I trusted you. No one else would have understood. Cade smiled faintly, feeling a warmth spread through him. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability could save lives. It could outthink creatures that relied only on mimicry and strength. They made their way out of the laboratory slowly, Cade supporting Lyra as they moved through the debris-strewn corridors. The energy pulse from her crystal had dimmed, but she still clung to it, holding it like a lifeline. Cade glanced back at the containment field. The creature struggled, but it could not escape. It would remain trapped, at least for now. As they reached the main corridors, Lyra whispered, "The station. They can't know about this. They would misunderstand. But I knew you would understand, Cade. You see people, not just patterns." Cade nodded. He had always felt different from the rest of the crew, always noticing small details, small truths. And now he knew why. It wasn't just skill or training. It was human nature, a combination of intuition, emotion, and courage that no other species could match. They moved through the station quietly, avoiding crew and cameras. Cade kept one hand on her back, steadying her, while the other clutched the crystal. Lyra's energy was weak, but she was alive, and that was all that mattered. They passed maintenance tunnels, empty chambers, and docking bays, each step a reminder of how close they had come to danger. But Cade felt no fear now. He had faced the unknown, had seen what others ignored, and had found Lyra when no one else could. Finally, they reached a safe area near the research wing. Cade helped Lyra sit down, letting her rest while he examined the crystal. It had served its purpose, guiding him through the maze of tunnels and dangers. Lyra watched him carefully, her eyes reflecting a mix of exhaustion and awe. I thought I would never see anyone else," she said softly. "But you came. Only you could." Cade smiled, though his body ached from hours of running, crouching, and dodging. "It's what humans do," he said simply. "We notice things. We act when others hesitate, and we keep our word." Lyra nodded, her fingers brushing against the crystal, now dim and lifeless. As they rested, Cade thought about the creature trapped in the containment field. It had been clever, dangerous, and relentless, but it had underestimated humans. It had assumed patterns and strength were all that mattered. But humans were different. Humans saw beyond patterns. Humans felt connections. Humans could trust and act on instinct in ways no other species could. That difference had saved Lyra, and it would continue to guide them in the dangers ahead. Hours passed as they recovered. The station continued its hum, oblivious to the events that had unfolded in its hidden chambers. Cade and Lyra finally stood, preparing to return to the research wing. She leaned on him slightly, still weak but smiling faintly. "Thank you," she said, her voice stronger now. "I knew you would find me, Cade. I had to believe you could." Cade nodded, glancing at the crystal one last time. "Humans see what others ignore," he said quietly. That's why I found you. That's why I always will. Lyra's eyes glimmered with trust and something more, a sense of safety she had not felt in hours, perhaps even days. Together they moved through the corridors, leaving the hidden laboratory and its dangers behind. The station stretched out before them, bright and alive, full of people who went about their routines, unaware of the threats lurking in the shadows. Cade felt a quiet satisfaction. They had survived, and they had proven something important. Human intuition, courage, and trust were powerful tools. Sometimes the greatest strength lay not in technology or alien abilities, but in the mind, the heart, and the choices of a single human being. And for Lyra, that truth had saved her life. Cade helped Lyra move cautiously through the corridors of Station Helion 4. Her body was weak from hours in the stasis cocoon, but her spirit seemed stronger than ever. She leaned slightly on him, trusting his strength, his instincts, and the human intuition that had guided him through danger. Cade could feel her heartbeat against his side, faint but steady, and he let that rhythm steady his own pulse. The station had returned to its usual hum, but he knew that their journey was far from over. The creature might be trapped for now, but the risk was not fully gone. The research wing was still a distance away, and the path was not simple. Maintenance corridors twisted in ways that disoriented even seasoned crew members, and debris from old structural damage made travel difficult. Cade led the way, scanning for the smallest signs of danger. He could hear faint echoes behind them, metal scraping, a low hiss, the shifting of shadows, but he did not turn. His mind worked on multiple levels, calculating the safest paths, the potential traps, and the locations where they could hide if needed. "Do you think it will come after us again?" Lyra whispered, her voice soft, filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. Cade shook his head slightly. "Not unless it figures out how to escape. And it doesn't understand humans. It thinks patterns define us. But we see beyond patterns. That's what made the difference." Lyra nodded, her glowing eyes reflecting the dim light of the corridor. You really are different, Cade. I see why I trusted only you." She paused, as if thinking carefully. "I don't know if anyone else could have done what you did." Cade smiled faintly. "Humans have a way of noticing what others miss. That's why we survive. Sometimes when everything else seems impossible." He glanced at her again, proud but cautious. "And we keep our word. I promised I would find you. I keep my promises." The words seemed to comfort her, and she drew a little closer, leaning on him as they moved forward. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, but Cade's focus never wavered. Every shadow, every creaking panel, every flicker of light was noted. He could feel the presence of the creature lingering somewhere behind them, trapped for now but aware. That awareness was dangerous, and it demanded vigilance. They entered a wider corridor that led toward the main research area. The lights were brighter here, flickering intermittently as though testing the station's power systems. Cade moved carefully, guiding Lyra around debris and broken conduits. The sound of their steps echoed faintly, and for a moment they both froze, thinking they heard movement behind them. A shadow flitted across the walls, almost invisible, but Cade could feel it. "Stay close," he whispered. "Don't look back. Just move." Lyra nodded, trusting him completely. Together they advanced, step by step, until the corridor opened into a small maintenance junction. Here, Cade spotted a cluster of loose panels and wires. With a glance, he understood their use, a shortcut through the old service ducts. It would be tight, dangerous, and slow, but it would keep them out of sight of any wandering crew or lingering threats. He lifted Lyra gently and helped her through the first duct opening. She moved carefully, placing her feet where he guided her. The passage was dark and narrow, the metal walls cool and slightly damp against their skin. Every movement had to be precise. Cade kept his hand on the small of her back, feeling the steady pulse of her trust, which gave him strength. He had never known fear like this in the way that mattered. It was not for himself, but for her. As they crawled, a faint rumble echoed through the ducts. Cade froze, listening. Something moved above them, soft but deliberate. The creature's awareness extended beyond its containment field. It might be trapped, but its presence seemed to vibrate through the station. He adjusted his grip on Lyra, ready to react, and slowed their progress. "You feel it too, don't you?" Lyra whispered. Cade nodded. "Yes. But we're human. That means we adapt, we think, we survive. It can't predict that." The ducts twisted and turned, taking them closer to the main research wing. Every narrow bend, every loose panel required careful movement. Cade's muscles ached, but he ignored the pain, focused entirely on Lyra and the task ahead. This was why humans were extraordinary. Other species relied on strength or speed, on mimicry or instinct. Humans relied on mind and heart, on observation, judgment, and trust. That combination was what had saved Lyra, and it was what would carry them to safety. Finally, they emerged from the ducts into a side entrance of the research wing. Cade set Lyra down gently, helping her steady herself. The room was quiet, almost serene compared to the chaos of the tunnels and chambers they had traversed. Sunlight from the station's observation windows bathed the area in warm, golden light. Lyra's eyes shone as she looked around. For the first time in hours, she seemed truly relieved. "We made it," Cade said softly, though he kept his senses alert. "We're not out of danger yet, but we're safe for now." Lyra nodded, her glowing hands brushing against the edge of a table for support. "You really did everything I couldn't. You saw what no one else could. I knew it was only you who could." Cade smiled faintly. "Humans notice what others ignore. We feel the small things, the things others call unimportant, and we act. That's how we survive." They stayed in the research wing for a while, catching their breath and reviewing the events that had unfolded. Cade examined the crystal in his hand, now dim but still warm. It had guided him through the labyrinthine tunnels, through danger, through uncertainty. Lyra's trust in him had been the key, the link that had allowed him to see beyond the obvious, to act when others might have hesitated. After a moment, Lyra spoke again, her voice quiet but determined. "I need to finish what I started, but I cannot do it alone. I would have failed if it weren't for you, Cade. You are different from anyone I have ever met." Cade nodded. "Then we finish it together. Humans are strong, yes, but we are strongest when we work with others. And you taught me something, too. Trust is more powerful than fear." As they prepared to move back toward the core research area, Cade paused and glanced toward the containment field where the creature remained trapped. Its distorted limbs pressed against the energy barrier, its voice a strange mixture of growls and imitations. Cade felt a chill, but he also felt resolve. The creature had underestimated humans. It had relied on mimicry and fear, but humans relied on intuition, connection, and courage. That combination was unbeatable. He guided Lyra carefully, step by step, past the main corridors, past areas where crew members might appear. They moved silently, deliberately, blending into the rhythm of the station. Cade noticed small things others might miss. A loose panel that could hide movement, a faint shadow that indicated a patrol was near, the hum of machinery that could mask their presence. Each observation was a tool, a small advantage that would keep them safe. Finally, they reached a secure area near the observation deck, a place Lyra had deemed safe for discussion and planning. She sank into a chair, still glowing faintly but visibly relieved. Cade set the crystal down and leaned against a nearby console, catching his breath. "You saved me," Lyra said softly, her glowing eyes meeting his. "I knew only you could. Everyone else. They would have missed the clues, the small signs, the truth hidden in plain sight. Only a human could see it." Cade smiled, feeling a quiet pride. "Humans see what others ignore. We notice patterns and connections, feelings and intentions all at once. That's why we survive. That's why I found you." Lyra nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "Then we finish this together. I have to continue my research, but now I know I can trust someone else. I can act with someone who sees more than just patterns, someone who understands the heart." Cade felt a warmth in his chest. Humans had many strengths, but this was the greatest of all, the ability to trust, to act on instinct and understanding, to combine mind and heart. That combination had saved Lyra. That combination would guide them in the challenges ahead. Hours passed as they rested and planned. The station moved around them, oblivious to the dangers that had lurked in its abandoned sectors. Yet Cade knew the importance of what had happened. They had faced the unknown, survived, and proven a truth. Human intuition, courage, and connection were powerful, sometimes stronger than any technology, alien power, or shape-shifting creature. As the station rotated to bring the observation windows toward the light of the distant star, Lyra looked out, her glowing hands resting gently on the glass. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "And yet, it could have been the end. I'm glad you were there." Cade stood beside her, looking out at the stars stretching endlessly into space. "Humans notice the small things," he said quietly, "the things others overlook. That's why we survive. That's why I found you. And we will continue, because seeing and understanding is our greatest strength." Lyra turned to him, her eyes bright. "Then let's continue. Together." Cade nodded. Humans were more than patterns, more than instinct, more than survival. They were hope, action, and courage. That hope had saved Lyra, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The station continued its endless rotation, but for the first time since the ordeal began, Cade and Lyra felt safe. The unknown had been faced, danger overcome, and a truth proven. Human insight and courage could reach where no other power could. And as the stars outside shifted in the distance, faintly reflecting in Lyra's eyes, Cade knew this was only the beginning. They had survived the darkness, and now, together, they would move forward, unstoppable in their courage and human strength.